Many times we deal with situations where there's a misconception regarding mold. And I'm not sure where it originated, but a lot of people believe that if they use bleach and they wipe down the walls, it takes care of it. And fact of the matter is, without proper knowledge of mold and mycotoxin and mold spores, there's more harm that can be done than good when people think they're getting their property in a good direction. A is mold remediation. We have a 12-step process, so we're going to cover the first six in this podcast, and the second one, we're going to cover the next six steps. And together they make up what we call the Enviro-Dry mold remediation guarantee. And often in the part of the country that we live in, there is mold found in crawl spaces due to a lot of humidity in the environment. We have mold that grows in basements. Here in Kansas City, it's one of the biggest problems that residential homeowners and commercial businesses, people who own real estate, have a big hassle that they have to deal with regularly. And mold remediation, we always recommend look for a company that's been in business for a while, a company that's certified in mold remediation. Enviro-Dry cleaning and restoration is professionally certified by the ICRC. It's a national accrediting agency. And we also carry additional licenses and whatnot. Our insurance also covers pollution liability. So mold is a very real and present fact for people in Missouri, no doubt about it, and in the southern parts of the country more. We have calls weekly related to mold remediation, and the question is always, what do you do? The first thing that we always address is, like I said, the qualifications for somebody to be doing this. Another thing that we want to address almost immediately for people is the importance of taking proactive steps to handle the mold properly. Many times we deal with situations where there's a misconception regarding mold. And I'm not sure where it originated, but a lot of people believe that if they use bleach and they wipe down the walls, it takes care of it. And fact of the matter is, without proper knowledge of mold and mycotoxin and mold spores, there's more harm that can be done than good when people think they're getting their property in a good direction. In addition to the complex nature of mold remediation, you also have the health potential issues that result if you don't know what you're doing when you try to remediate. Mold is obviously by its nature not conducive to a human environment. It's the mold spores create their own basically immunity for themselves. Mycotoxins are present with mold if it's alive or dead. We always recommend to people, we cannot suggest health requirements or that this will cause a problem, so to speak. We always recommend them to a health professional, whoever their doctor would be, for determining if their symptoms that they suffer from within the home is related to the mold. But we can say that we know the adverse reactions that people would have if they were to try to remediate themselves or hire a company that didn't do it right. So, all that to say, we have this 12-step process that we always follow that's built off of our industry standard. And as long as this type of standardized remediation is carried out by somebody who's been trained, by somebody who understands the importance of the way that it's done, it's handled well, and there's a guarantee that not only is it removed, but it will stay gone. As I said, we've got basically a 12-step process. And before this remediation begins, often we also need to address the reasons why there's mold there. A lot of people look at it and they say, "Oh, I have mold, therefore let's get rid of the mold." This is true. You need to get rid of it. But if that's the only way that it's being addressed, it will come back. And the reason why it'll come back is because there's additional factors that go into play when you're dealing with mold. And those factors are going to be, how did it get there in the first place? Typically, it's going to be because of water that is intruded into the environment. Once water has intruded, then all it needs is the mold spores and an organic surface to grow on. Organic meaning a plant-based wood, anything that's paper products, so like gypsum or drywall. It grows on drywall readily. It grows on wood. Any type of organic product that would be in the home, it can begin growing on that. And if the moisture is there and, and present, then it will begin to take off. And typically here in Missouri, we see from the time water enters into an environment, even if there's no mold, from the time that water enters the environment until mold begins to show up on the wall, it's roughly 72 hours. And so the goal is always to remove and reduce the moisture in the environment. Sometimes that's an easy fix. Sometimes that's a little bit more complex. But the fact of the matter remains, unless that's done, even the remediation that's done within the home, it's going to be good for a season, but it will return. So the first step in mold remediation, ultimately, after the health aspects are covered, after the knowledge base is there and the company that's being hired knows what they're doing, the next question or the next phase of this project and mold remediation is to stop the intrusion of water. Once that is done and we get it to a place where it stays dry and dehumidified, we can help people with that. That's part of what we do. That's why we're here. We can help set up equipment that would be for the meantime. We can also sell equipment to people where we would just keep it monitored for them or come in once a year and take a look at it, make sure that it's still doing its job. But you have that, you remove the moisture, then you can begin the process, what I would refer to as this 12-step process. And that's where the guarantee comes from. So the first step is that the area where the problem is becomes contained. So we set up containment. And the reason for containment is so that we can keep all those mold spores isolated from the rest of the environment, assuming the entire house has not been exposed. I'm presupposing also that we've done a test. Testing is important. Even if you see it growing, we always recommend a test by a hygienist, industrial hygienist, or even another company that could be functioning as a third party. Regardless of who does the testing, you want the test to know where you're at so that when the completion of the project is there, you can compare what you've done to what was before. We have the containment set up and we know that this is the area. Then what we want to do is make sure that the people that are in that area working are protected. So we make sure that they've got personal protective equipment. We run air scrubbers inside of that environment to pull the air in to a HEPA filtration air scrubbing device and pushes out clean air. Within that environment, we've got that negative air running and it's scrubbing the air. And then we begin the process of removing all of the contaminated organic material. A lot of times people think, well, I don't need to pull out my drywall. Can I just hit it with bleach? The answer is, if you want this gone entirely, you need to remove the organic drywall, the areas where it's problematic. Now, wood at times you can actually treat that and you don't have to tear it out unless it has rot from the amount of moisture that's in there. So drywall always comes out, and wood many times we can treat in place. So all the affected materials are removed. Once those are removed, we've got the HEPA scrubbing going on. Then what we begin to do is vacuum with a specialized vacuum over all the area in the entire containment zone, from the floor to the walls to the ceiling, all over in the containment, the plastic of the containment, the entire area is HEPA vacuumed. And I'll just back off there. I would refer to this as part one of this podcast topic of mold remediation and the proper way to go about it. Tune in for the second episode here and we'll continue on.